States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please read the roll.
Monica Duran,
Here.
Zachary Urban,
Present.
Janice Hoppy,
Present.
Christy Davis,
Here.
Tim Fitzgerald,
Here.
George Pond,
Present.
Larry Matthews,
Present.
Genevieve Wooden.
Present.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Are there any changes to the minutes of October 24 and study sessions of October 17, as well as special study notes of October 24? Hearing none, they do stand as presented. And we can move on to proclamations and ceremonies, of which I have none tonight. And then we go right on to citizens' right to speak. So if there are citizens signed up to speak, usually our attorney comes running with them up forward for me. We have a professional runner. Thank you very much. We do have two people, Rachel Holteen, followed by Mr. DiTullio. Rachel, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Holteen, and I live at 4690 Balsam Street. And I'm here for a couple of reasons tonight. It's fun when an agenda is packed with meaningful actions within our community. But I just wanted to share with everyone two things. One is so I'm part of Wheaties Academy, which is a grassroots leadership program that just completed its second year. We just graduated 12 people who are within our community who are dedicated to figuring out how they can work with one another and work with the city to improve opportunities for all of our citizens to get more involved in what it takes to make Wheat Ridge a more accessible and exciting place to live. And what I loved about Wheaties Academy for 2 years in a row is that they've created a brand called Wheaties Love. And for a long time, we had a whole bunch of panels back here that were Wheaties Love panels. And Wheaties Love is the answer to the question, how do you Wheat Ridge? And I love that question because how do you Wheat Ridge is really unique. Wheat Ridge is not like any other city in the metropolitan area. So when we ask our citizens and we ask our elected leaders, how do you Wheat Ridge? The answer is really important and incredibly meaningful. And so we've had two Wheaties Academies that have graduated, quick math, like about 30 people. And they're all really interested in how do you Wheat Ridge? And they've loved what they've learned from their neighbors. They've loved what they've learned from their civic leaders. And they've loved what they've learned from their business partners. And as we move forward and we ask ourselves, like, how do you Wheat Ridge? I think when we're having an evening like tonight and we're looking at our budget and we're thinking about, like, how do you Wheat Ridge? Well, you Wheat Ridge through policy decisions, through budget priorities, and through how we interact with one another. And I will tell you the difference between last year's question of how do you Wheat Ridge and this year's question of how do you Wheat Ridge. What I saw this year was a community that was unified and trying to figure out how to move forward with how do you Wheat Ridge. So I'm here tonight to ask everybody, how do you Wheat Ridge? And I hope you answer it with hashtag #WheatiesLove. And I also wanted to share, I just came from a full day conference in Denver for their sustainability summit. And an idea was selected for the summit that actually originated here in Wheat Ridge. And I was at a table of 14 people who were trying to figure out how to make Denver more sustainable. 8 of us lived in Wheat Ridge. And the idea that moved forward came from Wheat Ridge. So we are leaders in ideas on what happens next. And I just really want to celebrate that and thank everyone in this room for making that happen. How do you Wheat Ridge? Let's find out in 2017. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DiTullio.
Thank you, Jerry DiTullio, City Treasurer. Just wanted to make a brief comment. So as your City Treasurer, as a resident and voter and taxpayer of Wheat Ridge, I wanted to thank the voters of Wheat Ridge for approving ballot question 2E and the investment in their city. It was a pleasure working on the passage of 2E with many citizens and business owners who could see the benefit of the public and private investment in our city, especially the number of construction jobs that will be created for each of the 4 projects. Furthermore, once completed, the Clear Creek Crossing project will create many permanent jobs of all types. One thing I wanted to clarify is that the reconstruction on the Wadsworth plant is still under design, and there will be further public meetings in February of 2017 and further maybe. A final engineering design will be completed after public input meetings. Now that funding has been approved by the voters, final engineering plans will be drafted by CDOT and the city. And then I wanted to also say what's really amazing about is the voter turnout this year for Wheat Ridge. Out of 21,000 registered voters, over 17,000 voted. That's a whopping 80% turnout. So I wanted to thank the voters again for approving that investment in the city. And whether you voted yes or against 2E, I think we all should come together now with these 4 projects, plus some other projects that are in the pipeline that have been for a while at 38th and Wadsworth and 38th and Upham, and really move the city forward together in a positive way. So thanks to the voters of Wheat Ridge.
Thank you. Okay, we can move right on. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? None? Then let's go ahead. Ms. Davis, would you read the consent agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The consent agenda, item A is a motion to award RFP-16-31 videography services to IOTK Media in the contract amount of $45,425. Consent agenda item B, motion to award a contract to Murphy Construction Company, LLC, Denver, Colorado, in the amount of $107,050 for Clear Creek Trail Maintenance Replacement Project, and to authorize a 10% contingency amount of $10,705 for a total of $117,755. Item C, resolution number 44-2016, amending the fiscal year 2016 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $4,000 for the Healthy Eating Active Living HEAL grant to be used for the installation of city directional and distance signs. And item D, resolution number 46-2016, approving the agreement between the City of Lakewood and the City of Wheat Ridge for Crime Lab crime scene services and authorizing payment of $69,600. Motion in order?
Yes, please.
I move to approve consent agenda items A, B, C, and D.
Mayor, before you vote, staff has a quick update on item B, the Clear Creek Trail Maintenance Project.
Council, this item is an extension of the grant from Jefferson County Open Space to spend the balance of the remaining funds for the original grant was 41st and Kipling relocation, the new trailhead. As part of this additional scope, Jefferson County is requiring an additional resolution, so I'll be bringing that in on November 28th.
Good. We have a motion, so I need still a second.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Wooden. Please cast your votes.
Who was the second?
Genevieve.
Genevieve Wooden.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 2. And item number 2 is a continuance of a previous council bill to which an ordinance had been assigned. So I'm going to go forward with asking Mr. Matthews to read.
This is Council Bill number 22-2016, an ordinance repealing and reenacting section 26-615 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning commercial mobile radio service and making conforming amendments in connection herewith, case number ZOA 1604. At issue, this ordinance repeals and reenacts section 26-15 regarding commercial mobile radio service regulations, more commonly referred to as cellular communication towers. These facilities are permitted throughout the city of Wheat Ridge, but the regulations have not been updated since 2001, and revisions are needed to align the code with current technology and FCC regulations. On October 10th, 2016, City Council opened the public hearing to consider adoption of the ordinance. Following the public comment from industry representatives, City Council continued the public hearing to November 14th, 2016, and directed staff to include provisions for alternative or stealth facilities in residential zone districts on property that contains a non-residential use.
I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. And staff, would you please give us a report?
Sure, just a brief update. This will only cover what was amended in the ordinance. So as was read into the record, we are here for a continued public hearing. It was opened on October 10th and continued to this evening to allow staff to develop code language that could allow stealth, or what we've determined in a definition as alternative tower structure, into the CMRS code, which could allow freestanding facilities on property that is non-residential but residentially zoned. So proposed language was provided by the Wireless Policy Group, which was the industry representative that was here on October 10th. Staff also conducted additional research to look into provisions that we felt were appropriate for the ordinance. Redline ordinance was included in your packet, but briefly to allow these, we've provided a definition for alternative tower structure and added reference to this type of facility throughout the ordinance as appropriate. Similar to a freestanding tower, these would also require a special use permit to be approved. Essentially, they need to conform to the definition, and that we're not providing specific architectural design standards, rather that they require that they're compatible with either both the natural setting as well as surrounding structures, and that they camouflage or conceal the presence of antenna. Just to note, there was also an updated letter provided by the Wireless Policy Group as part of the packet. They are requesting an additional height allowance. As proposed, the ordinance restricts heights for both freestanding towers and alternative tower structures for structures in the underlying zone district. The city charter does allow additional height for antennas, steeples, silos, and other mechanical elements. As we weighed this as staff, we considered our existing ordinance, which currently restricts freestanding towers to the height limits in underlying zone district, and also as a matter of determination of what exactly the alternative tower structure is intended to appear as, which is not an antenna or telecommunication facility. Noted, it is the more conservative approach, though. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council? Other questions? You must have done a fabulous job. Is there any other testimony? I don't know if we have any.
I'm not sure in the response, staff response to the letter from the WPG group, I didn't see maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I did not see a specific response to the request that towers be able to appear above the buildings.
So, no, you're correct. We didn't respond to that directly, other than in the ordinance. The ordinance itself restricts alternative tower structures to what would be the height limitation for structures in the underlying zone district.
So did you make changes based as a result of the request from the policy group?
No, they're requesting additional height allowance. So the ordinance does not include the additional height allowance.
Okay, so it's without the additional requested. Okay.
So that,
yes, please, Mr. Urban.
that additional height allowance would be from the roof line to the height of the antenna structure on an existing structure? Is that the difference between the standalone and those that are on on an existing structure? Is that what we're talking about, that difference?
Correct. So with the rooftop facility, we do allow additional height for the antenna portion, which is consistent with the city charter. Where we discussed and ran into, I think exactly you're illustrating kind of that determination of where does height of the structure for the alternative tower structure start or stop, and where is the antenna start or stop, and what is, in our opinion, it could get tricky to determine exactly, is it also being used for something else, and does that portion not count for the height, and does the antenna, it's could get
Right.
challenging to apply.
Okay.
Mr. Pond. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Urban, I thought you were
guess
done.
it's just trying to, my understanding is that although it's a freestanding structure in and of itself, its sole purpose is as an antenna of sorts, and so the whole structure would be somewhat of an antenna, although the apparatus and the technology doesn't start up until you get further up on the pole, but it would seem to me that just based on the technology, you would want it to be able to talk to the tower. So with it being limited to the roof line, it would be somewhat negated to have a freestanding structure in the neighborhood if it isn't able to reach above the roof line. Is that?
I think you're bringing up a really good point, and I think that's the point that the wireless policy group had raised. From our perspective, and the city attorney is, I believe, on their way, but we do believe that there's room within the charter to allow additional height from a legal perspective. But we took the more conservative approach.
Allow it beyond this ordinance, is that what you're saying? Okay. I had Mr. Pond.
Well, actually, now that that line of discussion is coming up, can you clarify that? You're saying that as written right now, there would be administrative or some way of actually adding height to what is called a tower or a freestanding structure beyond the limitation of residential height?
As written, no.
I had a question down here.
Well, I was along the same lines. Is there a variance process? But apparently not. Well, that's what I'm asking is, can they, if they have something that's 40 feet and it's a tower and it's skinny as a flagpole, is there a variance process that would allow it to go in?
I think there would be. I think given that, we've looked at this and said that it would be eligible and not violate the charter, so you could request a variance from height, because on its face in the ordinance as drafted, as Lisa has stated, it says the maximum height for buildings in that zone district. But that wouldn't preclude the ability to ask for a variance.
Thank you.
Is council comfortable? Everybody's understanding where we're at? Okay. Okay, I had some other citizens or people who wanted to speak. Let's go ahead with that, and then if there's more questions, we can go forward with that. Jennifer Price?
Thank you for allowing me back today. I think second on your list is Dustin DiPatino. He is our sort of resident engineering expert, so I may defer to him at a certain point when I've gone beyond my knowledge base. But I want to start out just by thanking staff. This has been an incredibly, Jennifer Price. This has been an incredibly collaborative process with staff, and so I really appreciate that.
Jennifer, I'm sorry, but we always ask for an address as well so that there's an ability to recognize our own citizens or whatever. Go ahead.
188 Inverness Drive West in Englewood.
Englewood, right.
So we, AT&T, so I represent AT&T Wireless Policy Group, represents AT&T as well. And we had weighed in last month with you all, and I think that was a good conversation. And I think my takeaway from that conversation was what I felt I heard was that you were really interested in providing the best possible wireless coverage with the least visual impact. And I think what has come out of the work that staff did does that. I think we have one remaining concern, and Lisa did a great job of outlining where that is. From our perspective, I think we need to make sure when we're talking about stealth facilities, so things that we're building in the hope that you don't know they're there. When we're talking about stealth facilities, we need to think about them from three perspectives. Are they viable? Are they inconspicuous? And as a bonus, could we actually add value? And so those are the ways I think we look at stealthing facilities and if it's an appropriate idea for us to deploy in a neighborhood. I think as written, the code amendment does two of those things. It is inconspicuous, and so it allows us to build something that hides in plain sight. In a lot of ways, it allows us to add value, so we're able to go on church properties, provide an income stream to churches. There's a lot of upside to these non-residential use locations in residential facilities, in addition to the fact that arguably with 40% of your constituents wireless only, just providing adequate wireless coverage is, I think, a value add. The question that we get to is viability. And so as the code is written right now, the top of our roof, or the top of our facility, a freestanding facility, would be limited by the underlying height in the neighborhood. The issue with that, and I'm going to turn it over to Dustin in a moment, but the issue with that really is we are a line of sight technology. And so you hear in the wireless industry the term clear the clutter. We have to be able to clear the clutter. And so you experience that when you take your cell phone into your basement. And suddenly you've gone from having 4 bars to no bars, and you're mad at us. And so that comes from the fact that we are trying to shoot through all the walls in your home and all the floors in your home, and it takes away our ability to provide you good service. The same is true when we're trying to build a stealth facility next to a small building. We're still going to have to shoot through that building to try to provide coverage. And if we have a little bit of height above the top, we can do that much better. And I would argue that those are the instances where you really want industry thinking, what's the best solution I can provide, not what are the restrictions forcing me to do. And if from an industry perspective, we can develop a stealth tower that is hiding in plain sight, if we can put up a flagpole, and we've added value by adding a flag and by adding additional cell service, and we are inconspicuous, that is likely a better solution than what we would be able to deploy on the rooftop. But without additional space above the roof line, we're going to be forced into, hopefully there's a viable rooftop that we're able to deploy on. And we're going to end up putting something on a rooftop where we may not be able to stealth it as well as we would have if we could have built it into a flagpole right next to it. And so I always like to turn it over to the engineers. They do a much better job talking about this than I do. So if you don't mind, I'll turn it over to Dustin, and he can talk a little bit about line of sight.
Doesn't have to be very hard.
Good evening.
Dustin?
Dustin DiPantino. Do you need my address as well?
No, you're with us. Yeah.
Yes. 188 Inverness Drive West,
Right.
Englewood as well. As Jennifer alluded to, we do have a line of sight technology, which it's very important to get above the near field clutter in order to provide a level of service and a level of quality that gets you to where you're handing off between cell sites when you're on your mobile. As technology is developed, throughput has now become a very big concern, and the speed of your data connection, that is very much tied to the power in which your phone or your mobile device receives that signal. So the higher power, the faster speeds, and as Jennifer alluded to, 40% of our constituents are wireless-based broadband service receivers, and certainly speed is important. And speed for video, it avoids buffering, and so fundamentally, it's a quality issue. It's also an issue with the number of cell sites. The less signal that you have, and the more attenuation you have within an individual site, it requires you to put more cell sites closer to one another in order to have that handoff between the cells.
Council have any more questions? We have a wonderful representative from here, AT&T. Go ahead, Dick.
Well, for the people out here, they had pictures for us last time we met, and I'm going to read a portion here of the red line. It says, examples include man-made trees, clock towers, bell steeples, light poles, silos, existing utility poles, and existing utility transmission towers. So when they're talking stealth, from what we saw in the pictures, I think they really, it's not going to look like a B-55, stealth bomber where there's, just something like that. And one example that they brought up to us that just kind of blew me away was on the way into the Wyoming border, on the east side of I-25, that buffalo up on the hill is a cell tower. So those of you that can recall that, so I believe sincerely that when they say stealth, they're not talking about something that is shapeless and ugly. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I am in favor of letting them have some leeway in what they need to do to accommodate all the technology that all of us depend on so much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Very good. We do have another speaker, Valerie Cardina. Valerie?
Hello, my name is Valerie Cardenas. I live at 3775 J Street here in Wheat Ridge. And I am here for two reasons. Number one, I am a resident of Wheat Ridge. And number two, I have worked in this industry for over 12 years. I'm actually a contractor to AT&T. And I was actually really excited when I heard that Jennifer was going to be working with the city to work on a code change. As an individual that's worked in this industry, I've had the position of meeting with planners and trying to design facilities to reach into neighborhoods. And the opportunity to design a facility that it adheres to the context and character of a neighborhood is what really made me most excited, because I've worked in jurisdictions where these kind of facilities weren't allowed. However, when you bring them in and you design them to adhere to the context and character of the neighborhoods, you don't see them. And one example that I'd like to bring up is there's a church right off of 38th and Wadsworth, right on the southeast corner. It's behind the gas station. There's a cross on that property. And I was actually speaking with Dustin, who grew up over in this area as well, just in the Denver area, northwest Denver area. And he didn't even realize that facility was a telecom facility there. It's designed into the cross. The antennas are placed on the facade of it. So it's really considered a stealth facility there as well. So that's really the objective of allowing these kind of designs, is because you won't see them. And that's really the value to Wheat Ridge as a resident.
Thank you. Does council have any more questions, or can we go on to the motion? We're good? Mr. Matthews?
I move to approve Council Bill number 22-2016, an ordinance repealing and reenacting Section 20-615 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning commercial mobile radio service and making conforming amendments in connection herewith on second reading, with the amendments shown on the red line version of said ordinance. Direct the city attorney to finalize the ordinance with said changes, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
I forgot to close the meeting, the hearing. Please, give us a second. What?
I also needed to announce that this is ordinance number 1612.
We had one, is this the same that we had before?
I know, but I think for the hearing, it's
Absolutely.
good.
What was the number again?
1612.
Thank you.
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Fitzgerald. Go ahead and cast your votes unless you have more discussion. Wait a minute, we have one more, Mr. Matthews.
I need to ask staff, and I'm not trying to belabor the point. Would it be appropriate to request amendment for some additional language to be added to this to allow for this extra height at this point? And, or is the variance process such that maybe it's not an issue? I don't want to make it more complicated than it has to be. I mean, I wouldn't want to try and propose that amendment myself, not having technical knowledge of what would be required. Do they need 5 feet, 10 feet, or what have you?
We'll let staff confer here a little bit. There is a recommended change that was provided in the letter from the AT&T consultants, but we'll have Mr. Dahl answer your question.
You can certainly use the variance process. There are some limitations on height for variances in the charter, although I doubt that these, those would control in any event, But if you wanted to make an additional amendment on second reading to address height in the way suggested perhaps in the industry letter, I assume is what we have in the packet, you could do that. It's all right to do amendments on second reading. So procedurally right now what we have is a motion to approve the ordinance on second reading has been seconded, so it would be procedurally acceptable to take a motion to amend that motion to add that language.
We can do that. Did you want to do that? Make that motion to amend?
And I should add that, the BOA, and I think that's really your question, the Board of Adjustment is available whether you make this change or not. We do have a variance process that is case by case. And I don't have an opinion on which you take, but I think it's important to distinguish that if you don't make the amendment, then additional changes would be case by case in front of the BOA, each time proving hardship and the other standards. So if you don't make the amendment, that's there's an avenue and it's a process, but it's individualized. If you make the change, then the process is not individualized and it's in the code. And of course there could be further variances to that, but you've kind of taken a variance concept and legislated it. And it's perfectly fine to do that, but I thought it might be helpful for you to kind of
realize
see the choice you're making around that.
exactly. I think Mr. Pond would like to discuss this. Do we need to have a motion in place in order to have the discussion?
No, I think this can be part of the discussion on the main motion.
Sounds
If
great.
it comes to the point where you feel an amendment's necessary, somebody can make that amendment.
All right.
Well, hearing that explanation about the two choices, one to adopt amended language right now into this, which I'm not seeing in front of me, but I assume creates a more specific and thereby non-individual way of adding that height versus the leave this as it is and allow the Board of Adjustment and our kind of normal variance processes to take place and to analyze these situations on an individual basis as they come present. I would prefer the latter, predominantly because I think that there's a good reason that these are individual cases in terms of different locations and different contexts, and there's a whole laundry list of things that could happen, and I think that it's great that we should be aggressive and creative about it, but depending on, it's a tree or it's a light pole or it's a silo and it's in this neighborhood or that neighborhood or next to this property or next to that property, those are all very unique situations that all should be taken into consideration into giving in a variance. If we already have the process for doing that, and I believe that's what I'm hearing, then I would prefer that we take that path. I absolutely understand the technical aspects, and I would consider that, and if I'm wrong, someone please tell me, but I would consider that a legitimate hardship if presented properly, that that getting over a technical hurdle could be appealed through the variance process and successfully. And I think if that's the case, I would suggest that we allow this to stay as it is.
Yes, Mr. Urban.
Just want to clarify, so that the technical aspect of this being, is that part of the variance process? Can the technological aspect of this be part of that appeals process? Is that an appealable aspect or condition of a variance request?
I would say that the variance criteria don't specifically speak to technical language just because they're not geared towards this technology per se. But having said that, I think one of the criteria is could this facility be built but for the variance? And if the argument is from a technological standpoint that it couldn't be built because it wouldn't work unless a variance were granted, that would fit that criteria as one of several criteria. So I think it's kind of a convoluted answer, but I think yes, that the technical challenge could be a part of the variance analysis, certainly.
Sure. Well, I guess I just want that to be in the record and understood that this is an interpretation of what we're looking at here, because obviously with any kind of variance process, they might try to understand the intent of what we're doing here, but that would obviously be a clear intent of this, is that the technological aspects of this are such that a clear line of sight is critical, and without that, these towers are useless. So,
Beyond just appearances, what you're trying to say. Okay. Anyone else want to ask a question? Mr. Matthews?
Yeah, thank you for the explanation. My intent here was simply to make sure that once we're visiting this now, that we kind of get it right and don't have to revisit it again a couple months from now. So if the mechanisms are in place that, this will work, then I have no problems.
Okay, we have a motion with a second. Are we ready to cast votes? Oh, Mr. Pond.
Just one closing piece before we cast that vote. I agree. If we can move forward and we have the mechanism in place to work, we should do it. Likewise, if we move forward and we start to see, and I say this for the benefit of the industry and everyone else who cares about their getting, their service, et cetera, if for some reason that variance process is not working for some reason and we have to revisit this, we can, and I think that's an appropriate pathway.
Enough said, I believe. I believe I see some hands are ready to cast their votes. Please do so.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. And thank you to our visitors who have come to help us through this. Move on to item number 3, Mr. Pond. This will be a presentation of the budget.
Thank you. I'm happy to introduce item number 3, public hearing on the proposed 2017 city budget. I'll just read briefly, and then I know we have a presentation, but at issue, sections 10.7 and 10.9 of the Wheat Ridge City Code require public hearing on the proposed budget be conducted before its final adoption, and that the budget be adopted by resolution on or before that final day, December 15th, 2016, established by state statute for the certification of the next year's tax levy to the county. A public hearing to receive input from citizens on the budget is scheduled for tonight. Adoption of the 2017 budget has been scheduled for November 28th at the City Council meeting. Staff will now provide a short presentation on the proposed budget. I could have delayed more, sorry.
Do you want to say it all over again?
Hang on just one second. I didn't want to start the projector too early with the last item, so it's just warming up.
Is bulk claim. I know. I know. Well, you can have comment on first reading. What? You can have comment on first reading. We do? We have to. I know. Why? Because politically
It's not the public hearing.
Right. Actually, it should be on the first part of the ballot, of the thing then, because it's not. You know what I'm trying to say? At the beginning of the meeting, they can say anything about anything. You know, I
Ken?
Mr. Trumpet. That's funny.
Tell them that later.
You're the first line of defense.
Is there an electrical engineer in the house?
When we start.
Yeah.
So whoever reads it is done reading it.
You could just approve the budget.
I guess we can do the comment while they're
Sorry, give us one second.
I don't know if I want to sit through
Was it on your
budget
screen?
presentation.
Yeah, it's on our screen.
You want us to?
You want us to flip it? You can do a little,
Yeah, it wasn't on here.
little close up.
It's probably.
Yeah, ours says Wheat Ridge budget and has $5 signs after it.
That's good. That's one of your best. Yeah. The budget now includes audio equipment. That's great. 3. John DeNova's going to come in bulk plane. That's interesting. It's very interesting. Oh, and the budget. Sorry, got it wrong. 333, part 4. See, this is first reading, so we're wondering what's.
Okay.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm Heather Geyer, the Administrative Services Director here at the City of Wheat Ridge. Our viewers at home should be able to see the PowerPoint. Unfortunately, those of you in the audience, it's going to take a few minutes for us to figure out this technical glitch. We are here tonight to present the 2017 proposed budget before council. This is our public hearing on the budget, and next step is budget adoption on November 28th. The City Council established a vision 2025 several years ago, and this vision states that Wheat Ridge is a beautiful city and a community for families. Wheat Ridge has great neighborhoods, vibrant commercial centers, and multimodal transportation, and is committed to environmental stewardship. Wheat Ridge residents enjoy an active, healthy lifestyle and hometown feeling and pride. Wheat Ridge, a great place to live. Thanks, Carly. In addition to this Vision 2025, the City Council established 5-year goals a couple years ago, and these goals include an economically viable commercial areas, financially sound city providing exceptional service, a choice of desirable neighborhoods, and a more attractive Wheat Ridge. Our short-term budget picture includes a 2017 proposed budget that is balanced as required by city charter and best practices, the addition of $2.1 million to our city reserves, city manager reductions in the amount of $1.6 million, which was done in order to balance the general fund budget, $465,075 in fleet replacement needs that have been deferred, and then 7.5 new positions that have been deferred as well. Voters approved 2E on November 8th, and you'll see in a few slides in a couple minutes that we've made updates to what the CIP looks like as a result of passage of 2E. This is a 0.5% increase to our sales tax, so sales tax in January will go from 3% for the city to 3.5%. The budget includes a $2 million transfer to the CIP, $100,000 transfer to the Capital Equipment Replacement Fund, and projected unrestricted reserves in the amount of 21.5%. That's just above our 17% minimum threshold per your council policy. In terms of the city's long-term fiscal challenges, we continue to have a systemic funding gap between the general fund and the CIP fund. CIP funding gap between 2018 and 2025, again, lacks a sustainable revenue source for infrastructure. There's a continued dependence on transfers from the general fund, which was shared with you at the budget retreat, and you'll see as we move forward. And continued focus on economic development is a priority for the city. So for 2017 total projected revenue, and again, this is all funds, so general fund, CIP, and the 8 special revenue funds. It's projected at approximately $40 million with a beginning fund balance of approximately $12 million, bringing total available funds to approximately $52 million. This is a 7% increase compared to the 2016 estimated revenues, and this provides an ending fund balance of approximately $9.3 million. 2017 total proposed expenditures, we have a breakdown for you on this graph. Total expenditures is approximately $43 million, and again, that includes the general fund, CIP, and 8 special revenue funds. This is a 10% decrease compared to the 2016 adjusted budget. General fund makes up the majority of the total proposed expenditures at 72%, CIP at 16%, Recreation Center at 6%, Open Space 3%, Conservation Trust Fund at 1%, and then the other smaller special revenue funds at 2% collectively. 2017 projected general fund revenues. So again, we're shifting into the general fund here. $33 million approximately in projected revenues, approximately $8 million beginning fund balance for total available funds of $41 million. This is a 2.6% increase compared to the 2016 estimated revenues, and that figure does not include fund balance. For projected general fund revenue, this chart portrays our reliance on sales tax revenue at 60%. You see the breakdown with other taxes as revenue sources. Want to highlight that property tax only makes up 2% of our general fund revenue at 1.83 mills, one of the lowest property tax mill levies in the metro area. And then you have our other miscellaneous taxes such as use tax, intergovernmental revenue, which includes grants, etc. 2017 proposed general fund expenditures are approximately $31 million, and we have a proposed $2.1 million transfer for a total of $33 million. This is a 0.7% decrease compared to the adjusted 2016 budget. It includes a $2 million transfer to CIP. So if you recall from last week, originally we had a $3 million transfer proposed to CIP, and so that's been adjusted by $1 million, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. We still have the $100,000 transfer to the equipment replacement fund, and we have an ending fund balance of approximately $8 million. That brings our unrestricted fund balance to approximately $6.6 million, which is that 21.5%. General fund expenditures, the breakdown shows police make up 32%, the police department makes up 32% of our general fund expenditures. Public Works, about 15%, Parks and Recreation, 15%, Administrative Services, 12%, then Central Charges, which is where we pay our medical insurance premiums, risk management, associated expenditures out of. General Government, which includes legislative budget, city attorney budget, city manager budget, economic development, makes up 9%, and then community development at 4%. Now we're going to transition into how the 2017 funding priorities are tied to the City Council strategic goals. Goal 1, economically viable commercial areas, includes urban renewal funding in the amount of $300,000 to help support the strategic priorities of RWR. enhanced sales tax incentive program and tax increment financing in the amount of $564,000. That breakdown includes $500,000 for Kipling Ridge, the Sprouts development, $40,000 for Wheat Ridge Cyclery TIF agreement, and then $24,000 for the SSEP agreement for Colorado Plus. We have $140,000 budgeted for Ridge at 38 public events, $22,500 budgeted for citywide public relations and marketing efforts, and then $45,000 in support of the Wheat Ridge Business District Grant Program that assists local businesses with improvements to their properties. Continuing with Goal 1, Live Local Events, funded at $50,000. Building Up Business Loan Program known as Bubble, $25,000. Realtor New Resident Developer Positioning Tours, $20,000 is included in the budget. And then $7,500 to support 44th Avenue corridor marketing efforts, along with $5,000 to support 29th Avenue marketplace marketing efforts. Continuing with Goal 1, 38th Avenue marketing is budgeted at $40,000. Ridge at 38 Banners and Lights program, $25,000. Gold Line marketing materials, $10,000. There's $27,500 budgeted for the neighborhood revitalization strategy update, and then $100,000 budgeted to do work in relationship to the Kipling I-70 corridor planning effort. Wadsworth Reconstruction Project CIP, we've adjusted this number to $1.7 million, and then you'll see where the other amount of funding for Wadsworth is captured later in the presentation under 2E projects. Moving to Goal 2, to provide a financially sound city providing exceptional service. Preventative street maintenance is now shown at $2 million, and that's an increase from the $500,000 that you saw last week as a result of the passage of 2E. Fleet acquisition and replacement is budgeted at $547,000. Employee compensation, pay per performance on an average of 3% is budgeted at $450,000. And then our regional cooperation with Lakewood for Crime Lab services and overall regional crime lab, those two amounts are shown at the bottom there. Continuing with Goal 2, employee safety and wellness programs is budgeted at $43,530. Our Socrata open budget software at $7,500. Contractual sales tax auditing services, we have $36,300 included to continue that program. Community solar garden lease payments, $80,167. And then replacement of heat exchangers at the outdoor pool, $35,000 is budgeted. Goal 3, a choice of desirable neighborhoods. And the Open Space and Conservation Trust Fund budgets, there's approximately $2.2 million budgeted for Prospect Park improvements. And Joyce is here and she can speak to any questions that you have later on about that project. Recreation Center maintenance is budgeted in the Conservation Trust Fund budget at $115,000. The TLC program, we have $40,000 in funding. The Home Investment Loan Program, known as HIP, there's $25,000 budgeted for that program. And then the Police Department Community-Oriented Neighborhood Projects, $36,288 is budgeted towards that program. In addition, in the Police Department budget for Park Patrol, there's $34,900 budgeted, along with $29,000 in special events overtime that the police department needs to help support all of the wonderful community events that we have in Wheat Ridge. 2 part-time park rangers, we have $23,400 budgeted for those 2 positions. And then in the CIP budget, there's $50,000 budgeted for ADA improvements citywide, and Scott's here and can speak to specifics if you have questions about that project. And then Discovery Park ADA accessibility playground improvements are budgeted in the Conservation Trust Fund budget for $125,000. In both Conservation Trust and Open Space, we have miscellaneous park and trail maintenance projects that total $425,000. In the open space budget, we have open space improvements for $50,000, and then city right-of-way maintenance in the general fund totaling $65,311. The Gold Line Station right-of-way maintenance, $13,416. Bus shelter and bus maintenance, bus bench maintenance, cleaning and snow removal, $40,000. Goal 4, a more attractive Wheat Ridge. We have the large item pickup program for $5,000, the Anderson Park water line for $100,000 in the general fund, and that's something that will be included in the Anderson Park project, so that may free up some funds in the general fund. There's 2 FTE community service officers for $102,000 that are budgeted in the Fund 63 Crime Prevention Fund, and then facility repair and maintenance for historic buildings that totals $38,110. And then Founders Park Playground in the Conservation Trust Fund budget for $100,000. Some other notable budget items to share include city sponsorships and community partnerships. The city sponsors the Carnation Festival in the amount of $60,000, and I believe the Carnation Festival made a increased request of council that you need to consider. Staff overtime of $25,500, barricades in the amount of $2,000. This year, the council organized the Citizen Review Committee for the Outside Agency Program, and that group of citizens prioritized requests from outside groups that total $108,950. And the breakdown for those organizations was included in your packet, as well as it's included in the budget message that can be found online. And then there's miscellaneous expenditures, or you can consider this an unfunded mandate from the state for court-appointed attorneys per House Bill 1309 in the amount of $12,500. So now we're going to transition to the 2017 proposed CIP program budget. So this slide has been updated to reflect the passage of 2E. Total available funds proposed with that passage are approximately $5.1 million, with an ending fund balance of approximately $22,796. You can see the breakdown on the chart below. Expenditures that are proposed amount to 5.128, and then revenues approximately $4 million. CIP major projects include preventative street maintenance for $2 million, and again, that amount was increased as a result of passage of 2E. The Wadsworth EA project at $1.76 million. Minor street improvements for $435,000, and that's for the 29th Avenue and Fenton Street project. We have $233,000 budgeted for public improvement development projects on 32nd Avenue and Xenon Street, and then miscellaneous drainage improvements that total $200,000. The Clear Creek Crossing project, Phase 2 EA reevaluation, $140,000. The ADA plan mentioned earlier, that's budgeted at $50,000, and that would be the completion of that plan, and then the Clear Creek master plan update for $50,000. Additional projects that are now being reflected in the CIP as a result of the passage of 2E include the PD evidence building for $50,000, and that's proposed as being budgeted over a 3-year period. The neighborhood traffic management program, $35,000. Gateway signage program for $50,000, and then the completion of the bike pen master plan for $30,000. Additionally, new shop funding has been included in the amount of $25,000, along with municipal parking lot improvements at $25,000, aerial photography and GIS updates at $25,000, and then the Maple Grove Reservoir partnership that we have in the amount of $10,000, and then a streetlight program improvements at $10,000. So as mentioned earlier, voters approved 2E on November 8th, and we'll be taking steps to move forward with the bonding that will be part of 2E, creation of a special fund where these revenues and expenditures will be segregated. We'll be working on coming up with a name for that special fund, similar to CIP, etc. And so we've included a breakdown here for you to see that we'll have the revenues broken out, and then the expenditures based on project names. So you have Clear Creek Crossing, and we've broken out over the period of a 4-year time frame what you can anticipate, knowing that these are somewhat subject to change, what you can anticipate those expenditures to look like. And then you have the $33 million total on the right-hand side. So there's 4 major strategic investments that the city is able to move forward with as a result of the passage of 2E. The Gold Line project at $12 million. This includes the reconstruction of the adjacent streets, Ridge Road, 52nd Avenue, and Tabor Street. The installation of a traffic signal at Ward Road and the Ridge Road intersection. Building a pedestrian bridge over the rail tracks. And then the Clear Creek Crossing project, budgeted at $10 million. This includes the construction of westbound I-70 hook ramps, removal of the off-ramp at 32nd Avenue, and construction of a connecting street at 32nd Avenue. The last 2 major strategic investments include Wadsworth EA, $7 million. This includes 3 travel lanes in each direction, 10-foot sidewalks on both sides, 10-foot tree lawns on both sides, 10-foot 2-way bicycle lane on each side from 35th to 44th, center medians and continuous flow intersections at 38th Avenue and 44th Avenue. Anderson Park improvements are budgeted at $4 million. These include renovations to the outdoor pool locker room, Anderson building upgrades, replacement of the roof, reconfiguration of space to enhance fitness and wellness programming, upgrades to the baseball field to a multi-purpose sports field, reconstruction of the soccer field to a higher quality multi-use field, and then parking lot improvements and water line replacement. As mentioned earlier, the next step is adoption of the proposed budget on November 28th, along with certification of the property tax mill levy. And with that, we will open it up to comments.
Thank you, Heather. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open that because we are going to be available for public comment. And we could ask, let's have that public comment, and then we can have questions of staff. Would that be suitable? Public comment includes, let's see, we have 3 or 4, 5 maybe people. Joy Opp.
Hi, my name is Joy Opp. It's OPP. I live at 46 Hillside Drive. As a member of the Board of Directors of Local Works and a longtime resident of Wheat Ridge, I would like to describe my experience in planning and attending the Friday Night Live events this summer on the Green. A small group of 3 of us started meeting in the early spring and quickly formed a game plan for showing movies 3 times during the summer, preceded by live music. I was so impressed by the enthusiasm and creativity of the volunteers I met with, and as the details came together, we were looking forward to seeing our planning come to fruition. As the band began to set up at the first event and people arrived with kids and lawn chairs and picnics, we all got an overwhelming sense of pride. As the Green filled, kids ran and played safely, it was clear the event was a huge success. Each of the 3 nights received amazing turnout, and attendance was around 450 people at each event, 1,350 people total for the summer. Having this number of people sitting, listening to music, laughing, eating, watching a movie in the dark, and enjoying time together in a fun environment was heartwarming and should give us all a deep sense of pride. The events put on by Local Works enable Wheat Ridge to provide residents with a deep sense of community. I ask for your adoption of the city budget and the full Local Works budget request.
Thank you. Tracy Langworthy, followed by Patty S. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Oh, Patty's going to be first. Patty, could you pronounce your last name for us?
Good evening. I'm Patty Askew, 3845 Cody Street, and I am a board member of the Wheat Ridge Backpack Program. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to come and present some pertinent facts to you on why maintaining the previous level of funding is very, very important. I think Tracy is going to give you some. These are a breakdown of how many children we fed just in the month of October. And they went home on Fridays with a backpack full of enough food to feed them for the weekend, and maybe a little bit over for somebody else in the family. So you might take a look at that. I'll just take the final breakdowns. You can look at the week-by-week program. We fed 288 children per week, and that added up. It was 1,382 children for the month of October. And Tracy will talk a little bit more about this, but the Arvada Community Food Bank had to raise us from $2.50 per backpack to $4 per backpack because they were going in the hole on us, and she'll talk about why that happens. And so I would like you to know that last year at the amount of money that we had to pay then, and this breakdown is on the bottom of what you see there, we paid out around over $39,000. Currently we have, and this is on your sheet, $20,362 in our account. So I think that hopefully you can understand how very important it is to keep the children of Wheat Ridge with food in their tummies. And obviously it goes without saying that if we can't come up with enough money, we're going to have to cut out a school or cut out a grade, or I really don't know how we would go about it. While we totally appreciate the current level of funding that you have offered us, we certainly hope that you will consider how very important this program is to all of us, and up our allotment. Thank you. And now Tracy. I can't stand to talk into one of those.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tracy Langworthy, Langworthy. My address, 10945 West 44th Avenue. So Patty kind of touched base on what happened. Arvada Community Food Bank had been funding or only charging us $2.50 a bag for a substantial period of time, but those were direct costs. And when they kind of sat down and looked at what it was costing indirectly to provide this service to our youth, they realized that very, very quickly that they were not covering what they needed to. So they came back to us with a rate of a $4 per bag per student, which may not seem, a large if you look at it just a few students, but really what that amounts to is a 60% increase in what we're now paying. We're providing bags to 3 Title I's, Stevens, Pennington, Color Strand, and our Head Start over there off of 41st and Youngfield. So when you kind of look at the numbers that she's given you, if you take those amount of students per month and multiply that by what we thought we were going to be paying. That's about $3,400 a month. But if you look at the increase, we're now up to about $5,500 a month. That ends up being $18,000 a year more than we really anticipated on having to raise. I know that as part of the committee on that outside agency, the recommendation was $7,000 for Wheat Ridge Feed the Future, but I'm really here with my Wheat Ridge Feed the Future hat asking you to fund it at the $10,000 level. I know that budgets are tight, having been in your boat before, but we really do need that money because our students come to our schools and they need to be able to study. They need to be able to be going home and knowing that they're going to eat. And just because their parents may be in a situation that doesn't allow them that freedom to have food equally, that's not the children's fault. So really, if you can just kind of think about this as a child problem, not a parent problem, and really find it in your heart to do the $3,000 more, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3 is still John Genova. Followed by Britta Fisher.
John Genova, Genova. I live at 3430 Otis Street. I grew up in a small farming town east of Pueblo, and I moved to Boulder in 1995. Then Westminster, and then Arvada, and then finally settled here in 2008 in Wheat Ridge. Of all the places where I've lived, only Wheat Ridge is really what I feel is a sense of community, and Local Works seems to bridge that gap between the city and the neighbor and the residents, and it catalyzes this sense of community. Now, I'm pleased that the scope of events which Local Works has organized has grown in scope and certainly in popularity and attendance. And accordingly, the number of events that Local Works has organized has grown over the years, and now there's more opportunities for the citizens to connect with their neighbors, either nearby or across the city. This exemplifies that sense of community that I find here. So Local Works outreach activities improve the quality of life for me and my fellow Wheat Ridge residents, and so I ask that you support the full Local Works budget request and to adopt the city budget this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Britta Fisher, followed by Rachel. Rachel, if you'll line up for us.
Good evening. My name is Britta Fisher. That's Fisher, and I'm a resident of District 1, but I'm here on behalf of Local Works this evening, an organization serving the whole city of Wheat Ridge. It's been 10 years since we've been incorporated. We'll be turning 11 in December. This has been our 10th anniversary year. We threw some people for a little bit of a loop, kept you on your toes, and changed our name. So Wheat Ridge 2020 is now Local Works. And while Wheat Ridge 2020 is still our incorporated name, we think this new trade name really reflects what we do in a relatable way. At Local Works, we help connect, volunteer, and create. We believe in Wheat Ridge. We connect residents and businesses to create a vibrant and engaged community. We are Local Works. So through connecting, volunteering, and creating, there's just a few highlights that I want to draw your attention to. I had the opportunity to speak to you at study session and was available for questions. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. A couple highlights under connecting. Live local events. We had over 40 events, classes, or workshops in 2016 with 693 attendees. This included our Dines, Active, and Harvest programs that help residents connect with one another and with local businesses. We believe that those relationships really do build the strong community that you heard previous speakers allude to. In particular, in 2017, Active and Harvest will be expanded with some partnerships with other organizations in the community, such as the Wheat Ridge Active Transportation Advisory Team and businesses like Four Seasons, some of our health and wellness businesses that are going to take more leadership in delivering more programs and services to our residents. The Ridge at 38 continues to grow as Wheat Ridge's Main Street. We're excited to see new businesses moving here from Denver and the surrounding areas, and to see our existing businesses thrive and survive and continue to expand. Our marketing events attract thousands of people from across Colorado and showcase that unique character and lifestyle of Wheat Ridge. All of the Ridge at 38 events experienced growth this past year, and there are a few highlights. We expanded from 5 to 7 major events, and we had over 20,000 attendees. We were awarded the state championship Criterium Road Race in our 3rd year of hosting that racing series. We collaborated directly with 19 of the Ridge at 38 businesses on those events. And indirectly, there were many benefits realized by the local businesses, citing an increase in business on event days and weekends. We couldn't do this without our volunteers. Wheat Ridge Local Works has 3.75 employees, so we're a little bit lean on the staff side, but we leverage lots of volunteers, hundreds of them, and so thanks to many of you who are in this room who volunteer to help at our community events and programs. In the first 10 months of 2016, our volunteers have contributed over 2,000 hours to the organization. That's the equivalent of another full-time staff person. We can't say enough about our great volunteers. In addition, we deliver very specific programs for the money that we receive from the city. We have other dollars that support any other activities in our budget. Some of those other programs that are supported by the city include our partnership with the Wheat Ridge Police Department, where we help clean up and improve safety in targeted neighborhoods. That's called TLC Wheat Ridge. In 2016, we hauled away over 1,000 cubic yards of junk that neighbors had tossed into our cleanup day dumpsters. In addition, our Wheaties Academy continued this year, with participants learning to turn inspiration into action. I'm definitely proud of what they accomplished, but I'm more proud of what they learned, how to work together to build community. With these programs, events, and many other things, we believe that Wheat Ridge continues to move forward, growing stronger, and that Local Works is a vital part of that. So I urge your adoption of the budget with the full Local Works request. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rachel, who is our last speaker on the budget, I believe.
Good evening again. I'm still Rachel Hultine, and I still live at 4690 Balsam Street. And I'm here tonight, obviously, to speak to the budget. And so a city's budget really reflects its priorities, and it reflects the relationship a city has with its community and its citizenry. Before I make my speaking points about the organizations I'm involved with and how the budget reflects the investments in those, I just want to share with you the Knight Foundation's review of the soul of communities. The Knight Foundation has looked at what makes communities great places to live and how do we invest in those. So I'm just going to read to you like the basic list of what they've identified through cities across the country. The first is basic services, then local economy, safety, leadership and elected officials, aesthetics, education systems, social offerings, openness and welcomeness, civic involvement, and social capital. Those are the things that the Knight Foundation have found make a community a great place to live. And I think we all in this room recognize that Wheat Ridge has those in spades. But when we're looking at how we budget to improve and expand those, it's really important to understand the three things that the Knight Foundation has found are the most important across the board. Those include social offerings, openness, and aesthetics. So as a city, when we invest in those three things, what we're doing is creating a community that makes a great place for people who live here today. It makes an attractive place for people who want to live here tomorrow and invest in our city as local business owners. And I'm creating that foundation because I'm here tonight to talk about two important parts of our budget. One is, as an officer for the Wheat Ridge Active Transportation Advisory Team, I recognize that when we as a city invest in opportunities to walk, ride a bike, and connect with transit, we're actually investing in some of the three most important things that make Wheat Ridge a great place to live. I'm really excited that 2E passed. Great today, better tomorrow. And with that comes a lot of opportunity for our city and our residents to invest in improved infrastructure for people who walk, ride, and connect with transit. But with that passing, it opens up our budget to look at how is the city then prioritizing long-term investments in bicycling and walking. And when I look at the city budget and I don't see 2017, 2018, 2019 allocations for implementing the Bike Ped Master Plan that we're in the process of updating, it makes me question how are we ensuring that the processes we're investing in today and the aesthetics and the opportunities we're creating for tomorrow are being budgeted. So I would like the city to take a look at allocating a budget allotment for this upcoming budget year and for following years to actually implement the priority plan that is being citizen informed and should be hopefully adopted in 2017. And then the second thing I want to just mention is we are incredibly excited about the big projects that have been long-term planned and that we will see come to fruition in the next year. And we recognize that those plans don't come easily and that they take a lot of time and a lot of investment, including the pedestrian and bicycle access to the incoming Gold Line and some of the other Clear Creek Crossing plans. So we just hope as the city looks at those larger plans that we're ensuring that we include bicycle and pedestrian accommodations in those. The last point is my ADAT hat is looking at the Garrison Corridor is a key corridor for the city to invest in. It's a very small corridor, and it will pay off in spades to improve access to the Gold Line, improve regional access. It's a regional corridor identified both within the city and within the region of Jefferson County is an important corridor for people who walk and who ride bikes. So I hope we can take a look at that. Okay, now I'm switching hats. I never wear a hat when I come here. I'm going to start wearing hats. I want to speak a little bit to Local Works because my personal involvement with Local Works has just expanded over the years, and it's not because of Local Works, but it's because Local Works as an organization provides a platform for people who arrive in Wheat Ridge, care about Wheat Ridge, and want to figure out ways to step up. And I'm just going to demonstrate that. I'm going to tell you the last week of my life. On Tuesday night, I sat around with my fingers crossed and drinking whiskey, hoping that 2E would pass because I wanted to see our city's ability to invest in itself. Local Works' role in that was its ability to create a platform for people who want to step forward and invest in the city. So through Local Works on Tuesday night, we were able to recognize the city's ability to leverage public and private interests in helping move our city forward. The next day, I got together with people in our community who are trying to figure out how to create an investment to help seniors in our community become more mobile and more engaged. Because of the Wheat Ridge Active Transportation's advisory team's partnership with Local Works, we're able to leverage a couple of small private investments and really create an opportunity and a program that engages seniors in our city. Excuse me. And then a couple days later, we're having a conversation about how do we get people more active on the green this summer. And within a couple hours, we had 6 or 7 different people who had these great ideas about how to bring people together for free to be healthy and active on our main street in our city. And so I recognize through those experiences that were brought to fruition this morning when I sat down at a table in a room of 500 people. The woman sitting next to me had just moved to Wheat Ridge. And she said, I'm really looking for ways to get involved, and I really care about connecting seniors with local residents. And my mom grew up in Wheat Ridge, and I was able to say, oh, well, there's this potluck on the 30th of November that's connecting different generations over food in our community, and it's totally accessible to anybody. By the time we stood up from that table, she had 3 generations of her family who were excited to come on the 30th of November. That's community. And so we can't always quantify what it means to build Wheat Ridge and to demonstrate Wheat Ridge's value. But when we have stories like sitting in a room of 500 people and being able to say, I have an opportunity for someone to connect in our community, that's what makes Wheat Ridge a great place to live. So I am going to fully recommend we approve the budget, but I'd also like the city to look at long-term opportunities to make sure that they're implementing the plans that they are investing in today. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have signed up for the public comment on this hearing.
Mayor, if I could maybe address one of the statements that was made, this
Certainly.
might help council in their discussions here, but it wasn't presented this evening. But because of the passage of 2E, we were able to put additional funds in the out years in the CIP budget for bike and ped improvements. In addition to, of course, the Wadsworth project, which is a close to a $40 million project, is going to have significant pedestrian and bike improvements. We were able to put about $600,000 over the next 6 years, or well, over a 6-year period starting in 2019. Additional $600,000 for other bike ped improvements that have come up and maybe are recommended in the bike ped master plan. So again, there were that was something that was added since the last budget study session we had.
Any other comments on that or questions? Mr. Fitzgerald.
Just a couple of general comments on Heather's presentation. One is, I think you had an expenditure shown as a TIF expenditure. I just wanted to make the point that that's a pass-through, and that's not costing the city anything, and we're just re-spending money that came to us back. And the second thing is, Heather talked about us adding money back into various budgets, including the CIP budget. And I just want to make the point clear that that money is not from 2E. That is money that we were saving in case 2E did not pass. So there is no intermingling of funds between our regular budgets and 2E.
Thank you for saying that, because that was concerning me too, as to whether there be that confusion. And what we have is a situation that every year we are really obligated to do capital improvements, and because we had no ability to do that, because we needed to take advantage of the Wadsworth Boulevard grant, that we were kind of in a position that if that didn't come through, we were going to have to do something which would have cost us unfortunately, we would not have been able to do the rest of the projects that need to be done in the city. It's just all very logical. Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Heather, can I clarify, on the budget you had Anderson Park water line for $100,000, but then it was also listed in the 2E project, the water line?
Sure, yeah,
Patrick?
thank you, Ms. Strand, I can answer that. That was a project that needs to happen, and so we did have it in the general fund budget. But with the passage of 2E, that could be part of that $4 million project. So that could reduce the general fund budget by $100,000 if council would choose to do that.
Okay, all right, thank you. I
sense?
just want to clarify that. Yeah, thank you.
Any other? Okay, I am going to close the public hearing. No actual formal action is required on this. This is really a hearing and review for the public. The formal action of adopting will be on 11/28. And I believe we're sort of through with this item. Patrick, did you want to add something?
Nope, that's correct. The official adoption would be November 28th.
Great. Okay. Let's move on then to item number 4, which is, that's an interesting item. Mr. Dahl, I believe, was wanted to speak to this.
Sure. If I could just give you sort of the procedural roadmap for taking
Thank
up
you for coming, everybody.
taking up a reconsideration matter. You are allowed by your council rules to reconsider any action you take at the same meeting you take it or at the next meeting. So at your last meeting, the first reading of the bulk plane ordinance failed 4-3, so that ordinance didn't progress. The potential for reconsidering that motion is tonight, and tonight's the last time that you could reconsider that. Otherwise, it has to wait 6 months under council rules. So the order of events, I believe, should be as follows. There are people signed up. As council knows, we typically don't take public comment on first reading, but this really isn't first reading so much as it is a reconsideration question. And I know it's of great interest. A sign-up sheet has been put out, and in my opinion, you do not need to waive the council rules, because this is an animal reconsideration that isn't really first reading. I think you just take public comment. I think you take that first, because if you take up reconsideration, you fail to reconsider, you're done. So it may well be that you want to hear from the public around whether this thing should be reconsidered and whether you should adopt it on first reading. In any event, I'd take public comment. Then the next step is a two-stage process, is to take a motion to reconsider your previous vote. That can only be made by members voting on the prevailing side, which are the people voting no, council members voting no in that 4-3 measure last time, and that's council members Matthews, Fitzgerald, Urban, and Duran. So any of those members can make the motion. Anyone can second it. That motion has to pass by 5 votes, not 6. That's my error in the council action sheet. It's a majority of the entire.
5, not 6.
Yeah, it's the majority of the entire council, which is of course 5, and that's my mistake, no one else's.
That's important.
If that motion doesn't pass, you're done, because you failed to reconsider the action you took last time. Not adopting the ordinance stands, you're finished. If that motion does pass, then you are capable then of acting again. It's like you've gotten in a time machine and gone back to the point in time where before the motion last time was made. So you can, of course, either move to approve an ordinance or not. So it sort of takes you back in time. You have those 2 motions, recommended motions, in front of you. The motion to approve, you'll notice, says second reading a week from tonight. That's a tight schedule. Under the charter, we have to give 7 days notice, but the charter allows that notice for a second reading ordinance to be, among other things, posted on the city's website. And we'll have staff available and be able to do that tonight. And that means you satisfy your 7 days under the charter. Typically, we take 14 days, we put it in the paper, and we'll do that too, but to satisfy the charter, it's just 7 days. That allows you, if again you go this far, to be able to adopt an ordinance on bulk plane on the very same day that the present emergency ordinance expires, which is the 21st. You, of course, could move to postpone indefinitely the ordinance after you've moved to reconsider it. You can do that too. I don't know why you would if you get all the way down there, but you certainly could. Questions on the procedure, otherwise it would be appropriate, I think, to hear from the public, and then you can take a motion to reconsider.
I think we ought to probably read it first. Read the motion, then we'll have public, we'll take public comment.
Well, the motion, read the title, sure,
Well, not
of the
really.
agenda item.
This is really, that's kind of yes and no.
And for the members of the public, I think they know what this is. That You're reconsidering your defeat
Right.
of the permanent bulk plane ordinance, which was to have replaced the emergency bulk plane ordinance that's going to expire by its own terms a week from now.
Right.
That's the topic.
So we will go ahead and go with public comment first, then we actually move to reconsider
That's right.
to see if we go forward, after which we would then read and create the new motion.
Yeah, and I'll take you through, I'll guide you through as we get through. Do you have the list? Madam Mayor, do you have the list? You do, okay.
We have several people signed up, and I'm going to start with Michael Epson, and that's followed by Al Lazalde. And if you could please be lined up, since we have a lot of people here to speak.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Michael Epson, 2905 Chase Street. You have seen me speak to you multiple times with my community group asking for a 12.5-foot bulk plane and a 25-foot maximum height limit. We think that the 15-foot bulk plane at this point is a fair compromise to try and preserve the historic neighborhood. We'd like to visit something in a height restriction after we finish with bulk plane, but my neighborhood group would like to encourage the council to please pass this ordinance or amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Al, and then Katie Jacobson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Al Lazalde. That's Lazalde, 2928 Chase Street. You got that? Okay. Well, like Mike was saying, this is a compromise, and we'd like to see the council members that voted against it pass it this time, so we have some kind of guidance, and we can start on the meat of things. It's just the first step. I'd like to see this passed tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. And Katie Jacobson, followed by Benny Gonzalez.
Good evening. My name's Katie Jacobson, Jacobson, and I live at 2929 Chase Street, and I've lived there the last 9 years with my husband and 2 small children. So I'm here tonight, too, to express my support and request your reconsideration and approval of Council Bill 25, 2016, on implementing residential bulk plane development standards. I believe this bill will reduce the mass and scale of new developments, and as a result, protect the privacy of my neighborhood's small single-family lots. I've spoken to you all before. My property has been greatly impacted by one of the newest 3-story builds, and I have been impressed and appreciated how the mayor, city council, and staff have all quickly analyzed, responded, and shown willingness to institute bulk plane requirements. So I want to thank you all for continuing this conversation and being diligent in working towards a compromise that shows recognition for hearing longstanding residents' concerns. And again, I ask for your reconsideration and support of Council Bill number 25. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And Benny Gonzalez, followed by Robin Thorpe.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council. Mayor, my name is Benny Gonzalez. I live at 3145 Eaton Street here in Wheat Ridge. And I, as well as our neighborhood residents, would like to ask if we can pass this bulk plane ordinance that is up to vote tonight. That's pretty much what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Benny. Robin Thorpe, followed by Dina Svetlik.
Good evening. My name is Robin Thorpe. I live at 3480 Benton Street, and I went to Wheat Ridge High School, and I just recently moved back to the area. In fact, I have very fond memories of 32nd and Ames, is where my grandmother's house was. And so when I heard about this issue, it concerned me. Deeply drawn to the neighborhood and the community that is here, and would encourage to this ordinance to be reconsidered so we can keep that wonderful quality that is here in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Dina, and then I can't read it.
Good evening, Dina Svetlik, Swetlik, 3715 Newland Street. Here to ask council to approve the bulk plane as it's been restated this evening. Again, there are already anywhere from 1 to actually 2.5-story single-family detached residential structures in the R1C and R3 zones, as well as 3-story other residential structures. So I'm here to ask you to reconsider and approve the bulk plane this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. The address is 3640 Marshall. Archer, David, or Darth? I'm not sure. Dorothy? Dorothy, okay. Hi, Dorothy.
Don't feel bad. Nobody else can read my writing. Mayor Jay, council, staff, and citizens, I'm here to speak on behalf of this ordinance tonight to please consider passing this bulk plane. Dorothy Archer, 3640 Marshall Street. The lady that spoke so beautifully about what do we do, Wheat Ridge. Right now we do Wheat Ridge. We have citizens to consider. They passed 2E for you. Now I think we do them right by protesting their neighborhoods. Issues come up often. There's no affordable housing for people. I think we need to consider how desperately needed it is to keep R1C the way it is. Once those 35-foot towers go up, the properties on either side and surrounding lose their value, and that's a proven fact. Any real estate person can share that with you. So in order to protect our citizens, I think we have to consider very, very sincerely where we're going with this. I was accused of not wanting Wheat Ridge to grow at the cost of who's already here. Thank you.
Thank you. Christy Altman, followed by Mr. DiTullio.
Christy Altman, 3085 Eaton Street. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Council Bill 25. I urge you to please reconsider implementing this bulk plane standard tonight. You have the opportunity to do so. I hope you do. While it does not reflect the standard that I believe my community wanted and was asking you for quite clearly, it's better than having no standard at all. And no standard at all is exactly what we would be going back to. Talk about visual impact. Talk about tower structures that are incompatible with surrounding neighborhoods. Apparently, we have building restrictions for antenna structures. Single-family homes in District 1, not so much. Please reconsider passing this bulk plane standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Hi, Jerry DiTullio, City Treasurer and District 1 resident, City Hall address. I wanted to encourage City Council to reconsider this bulk plane ordinance tonight for a couple of reasons. One is it's the right thing to do. It's been a lot of compromise and work going on with the council and staff. And then the other thing is, even if some of you decide to vote against this on second reading, what you had on the first reading was a public hearing without the public. Basically, on first reading, you have every right by council rules to kill something on first reading, but you had a public hearing and the public wasn't able to speak. And so I was watching this at home, watching the city council meeting, and my eyes were bleeding because there was no public here to speak on the public hearing that you had with staff and city council together when you decided to turn it down on first reading. So I would encourage council on public hearings in the future to even if you don't support them, to pass them on first reading so you can have a public hearing and have the public speak on both pro and con of that ordinance in the future. Even though, we've talked about transparency and 2E passed and the accountability of what we're going to have the 2E fund, and I'm just saying that this is one more transparency and more accountability that you can have. So I encourage council to support this reconsideration and also to support the 15-foot bulk plane, because if it doesn't pass, there's no compromise and there's no restrictions, and 35-foot buildings can go anywhere in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, I believe that's all we have that's speaking on this tonight. But I think we can now move on to the motion to reconsider.
Yes, that's a proper motion. It has to be made by one of the members, as I mentioned, that voted against the ordinance last week.
And Monica, I believe you're prepared to do that?
Yes, I am.
Please go ahead.
I move to reconsider Council's previous motion denying passage of Council Bill number 25-2016.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Matthews. Was there any discussion that you wanted to make? Anyone? Or did you want to go to the vote? No?
No, fine.
Fine. No discussion, then we can go to the vote. We do have.
I'd like to thank the staff for all the work they've put in on this and the citizens that have come out. We have heard you, and I have heard the extended requests from citizens to change what is in this particular ordinance slightly with the different height limits and things. And appreciate your input. I did support this last time. I do support it now. And thank you for your input, and thank you, staff, for all the work you've done on this.
Okay. This is once again a vote to reconsider, so please cast your votes on that.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, our next order of business is that we must have a motion for a special meeting? on
No, you either move to approve the council bill.
Well, we have to move to have a meeting to do it.
No, it's,
All right.
it's, no.
We can
you-
do it now.
Absolutely.
We can
And
do
now is
first
the.
reading right now.
That's right, because you have reconsidered
got
your
you.
first
First reading,
reading.
so we
You've
can
got
have
on the
second
time
reading.
machine. First reading's now in front of you, and of course you do one of two things. You move to approve the ordinance on first reading set for hearing next week, or you move to postpone indefinitely. So those are your two choices, and both motions are in the packet, and anyone can make this motion. Obviously, there are no restrictions.
I've been asked.
I am thankful to be able to make this motion for a second time. I move to approve Council Bill Number 25, 2016, an ordinance amending Articles 1, 2, and 6 of Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the implementation of residential bulk plain development standards on first reading, order published pursuant to Section 5.12H of the Charter. Public hearing set for Monday, November 21st, 2016 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect immediately upon adoption and signature by the mayor.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Who is the official second?
Mr. Urban
Urban.
gave us the second. Do we have discussion on the motion?
I feel that this is a good move for our R1C and R3 community. And when originally looking at it, I've had several conversations with several different builders and sat down and drew out a lot of stuff with those builders. And I feel like it is the most reasonable for that area. And I appreciate staff coming up with the variance process. That is a good, solid variance process. And I'm glad that we're also doing the base plane process the way we are. So I just want to say thank you for everybody to move to reconsider this. And I hope that we have an 8-0 on this. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Fitzgerald does.
Well, I'm just as happy to vote no for the second time. I support the 15% or 15-foot start of the bulk plane, but I still believe that the base plane, the method of figuring the base plane is unfair to people who have sloped lots. So I'm generally in support of the idea of restricting height in R1C areas, but I still want a different base plane measurement.
Mr. Ann.
I just want to echo some comments out there too. I appreciate all the hard work that staff has done, our attorneys done. Our citizens have done a lot of work and have been diligent in coming in here Monday after Monday to express what they wanted. And I really feel this is a good compromise. And each side isn't getting exactly what they want, but it's a good start. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Never mind.
Oh, Mr. Urban.
I would just say that in voting no previously, one of the reasons in voting no isn't necessarily an indictment of the policy being considered. It is in some cases a lack of information being presented to us, or not being able to have all the information necessary to make an informed decision at that point in time. And so that was one of my reasons for voting no initially, was relative to not having all the necessary information in order to make an informed decision. So I will be voting yes on this ordinance this evening, having the full information in front of me. But understanding it was a first reading previously, and understanding some of the mechanics behind that, I was still willing to vote no on that, simply because there wasn't enough evidence and information in front of me to allow it to go to a second reading, and I was willing to allow it to fail at that given time. But I think it's important to recognize that we have these abilities to bring it up for reconsideration if need be, and that's sort of the process that we go through on council to allow for reconsideration. So I'm glad we have a full council to reconsider it in front of this evening.
Anyone else? Please go ahead and cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-1 with Councilmember Fitzgerald voting no.
Okay. Okay, now we still need a motion for,
No, actually, your next item is the special meeting item. That's an informational item only, does not require any action by you for the reason that the charter permits the mayor to request a special meeting. The mayor's done so. Her request for the special meeting dated November 8th is in your packet to commence after the conclusion of the study session on November 21st, to have a special meeting at that time for two purposes. One, to conduct a public hearing on the bulk plane ordinance, something you've just finished deciding you want to do. And secondly, a resolution considering approval of the Fruitdale School Agreement. Under the charter, council doesn't act to set the special meeting under this particular charter provision. The mayor requests, or any two council members can request in writing, and the city clerk issues a notice, and I think a copy of the notice is in front of you. So I just wanted to point out for you that we followed the charter, that process has taken place, and there will be a special meeting at that date, time, and place restricted to those two topics. The charter says you can only have a special meeting on topics that are listed, and so they're listed. You can't add any other topics.
That was going to be my question, that we could only discuss and act on the topics that are listed. Is that
That's correct,
Okay.
right.
at that special meeting.
Correct.
Right. So no action necessary, and I probably should have just put this under city attorney's matters to
Right, so
report to
item
you.
5 is null and void.
No, it's not null and void, it's
Just
just, it's
take
an
care of it
informational
another way.
item.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, we have completed the business meeting, and we move to city manager's matters.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much tonight. I just report out to council. There was a couple council members there, Mayor and Councilmember Hoppy. We had the the Urban Land Institute Transit-Oriented Developments Marketplace Conference downtown last week, and the Wheat Ridge's Ward Station Gold Line commuter rail station was featured, and Ken Johnstone presented very well on that. We presented our new concept, and the base camp is catching on, as Mr. Urban suggested as a good tagline for that. And we did have a table on the sales floor, and a number of developers and interested parties came by and spoke to us. And as I mentioned, Councilwoman Hoppy even sat at the table and answered a lot of questions, and so I think that we got a lot of interest in the site. So we're going to continue marketing the site and this base camp outdoor recreational co-working site, and we'll keep you updated on how that goes.
That's great. Good news. City attorney's matters.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Elected officials, Mr. DiTullio, did you want to start?
Thank you. I just wanted to let council know there's the September monthly financials on your desk or on your dais. That's for September. The only, it has the revenues that we're at 66% as of revenues collected for sales tax as of September 30th. But I wanted to reiterate something that was mentioned earlier. Mr. Fitzgerald had asked. So once in January, this report will have another section for 2E completely separate from all the other general fund and capital fund listings. So when you will be able to look at that fund, like Patrick and Heather had put on the board tonight, that new section of funding will be listed on the reports. And there's no commingling of the funds. They have to go into those certain accounting buckets, and they will be. You'll have a 2E fund, expenses, and then 4 revenue lines, or 1 revenue line of 4 expense lines, and the revenue will be the one line that you saw with the $33 million in bonding. So there's no commingling of funds whatsoever, and that's part of the accountability and the transparency of 2E. Oh, I wanted to also thank council. I think you guys did a great job on the ballot question as far as clarity, conciseness. The projects were listed. You had the revenue, the source of revenue, and then the expense. It couldn't have been any clearer than that, so congratulations.
Thank you. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Will that 2E funding be separate on the website also?
This report's on the website. It'll be separate within this report.
Okay, on the website. Okay, thank you.
That's a good point. I forgot to mention earlier that we will bring back a separate fund, as Mr. DiTullio mentioned and Heather showed on the screen, after the budget's adopted, and probably after the first year, and we'll amend that to include this new 2E fund. So that will.
And yet still keep it separate within that.
Yeah, and it'll be a separate fund, and we'll bring that back in a few weeks.
Good, let's go through our city clerk.
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
She's tired after the election, okay? Let's start with District 1 tonight. Three, huh?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that going to the Urban Land Institute, the TOD Marketplace was fun. I did go to a couple of the meetings and listen to a couple of presenters from the different communities about what they're doing with their light rail stations. And I got a few ideas from there that I'm going to kind of bounce off of Patrick a little bit more. And was able to dust off my old pitch sales skills and get out there and pitch our city to some developers. And it was really great to be able to say our citizens just passed this through a vote to have these funds available for our light rail station. And that felt really good. And I was really proud of our community. So thanks for the opportunity to go there. And thanks for the opportunity to serve you guys.
Mr. Urban.
Thank you. Just real quick on the some of the public comments tonight relative to the budget. I really appreciate the fact that 2E was passed, and I just want to make sure that we recognize that with 2E passing, that's a significant investment into our city, specifically related to bike and pedestrian improvements into the city. And so when we have individuals come up to the dais and ask us for more, it begs the question of when is enough enough? And so it really does, sort of beg the question of, how much can we invest in to these different line items, and when is enough enough? And so for me, I would think we want to be grateful to the citizens of Wheat Ridge for the fact that they just invested in millions to the tune of millions of dollars in these areas, and leave well enough alone and recognize that, as opposed to coming back and asking for more and more and more. So that would be my cautionary tale to those that are always asking for more.
Mr. Pond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I guess, yes, I want to just kind of express my gratitude to I'll forget whole groups of people, I'm sure, but really everyone, city staff, who in many ways have worked for years on many of the items that were contemplated and ultimately put onto the ballot, and past councils and past mayors and people who really care about us moving forward, and the council being able to work together to compromise and find the right things. And the DIRT Task Force, the first one, and then the reconsidered one that came this summer, and all the people putting time in, and just how important that is. And I'm sure that not everyone got exactly what they wanted, but I think the city got an incredible turnout, and I think a positive vote, obviously, from our community to invest in our community, and I think that's a tremendous thing. There's a lot of choices and a lot of choices on the ballot, and not all of those investments actually were pursued. I'm certainly, again, grateful that ours was approved, and we've got a lot of work to do moving forward, and I hope that we continue to have the engagement of our citizenry, their intellect and their passion as we move forward and get these things done and really build out some of the dreams that we've been dreaming for a while. So thank you.
Ms. Davis.
Okay, just a couple things. Also, I'd like to mirror the thank you on 2E, and I'd like to thank the folks when I knock on your door, your welcoming spirit to talk to me about it. So that I wanted to thank. The other thing is I know we had the task force, the task force that kind of worked on our funds that were for donations and the outside contribution group, and I think the information from the Feed the Future backpack program was really interesting today. And so I would encourage council, so sorry, Zach, I'm going to ask for more, if they have any outreach funds left for 2016 to maybe consider the backpack program, if you have any funds left. Because, I mean, if you look at these numbers again, it's 358 children a week. So I want to make sure we meet that need because it is a need. And then or people out there in the audience, if you'd like to, on TV Land, like to donate personally, I'm sure you could contact the city and they could help you too. And I have the last catch up with Christy tomorrow at Clancy's from 5:30 to 7. Everyone might be kind of tired of Tuesday nights and you know, all that kind of stuff. But the last one is tomorrow, 5:37 at Clancy's. Catch up with Christy. Would love to see you there. Appetizers, iced tea, you know, those kind of drinks are on me. And love to see you there.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
I just want to again thank our citizens for being so involved in the city. We had the highest, well, first of all, 2E passed by 10%, and we had the highest vote total that we've had in a decade for an issue, a Wheat Ridge issue. And there was hardly any drop-off between the top of the ballot and the bottom of the ballot. So our citizens did a fantastic job of getting to the bottom of the ballot and voting to move forward. So I'm really proud of that.
Thank you. I would just like to encourage our citizens, and I hope everyone that is out there listening on TV Land, that we do have our budget consideration coming up on the 28th. And please stay informed and involved. These are your tax dollars. And so I would like to encourage everyone to spend some time taking a look at every piece of budget information they can get a hold of. And for those folks, especially in my district, if you have questions, please call me. Thank you.
Ms. Wooden.
Yes, I'll echo things that everybody else has said. Thank you to citizens for passing 2E. Thank you also to the Yes Wheat Ridge Committee that formed and spent a lot of volunteer hours to help get some information and education out to the citizens about what 2E was about and how it was going to work. I think that was important in getting this ballot issue passed. So thank you to the Yes Wheat Ridge Committee. Thank you to the citizens that are very interested in investing in Wheat Ridge's future.
Thank you. I guess I get to say thank you as well. You know, a tax increase is not, it's difficult. No matter what, it's hard for citizens to vote to tax themselves higher. And the council, we really appreciate the citizens' faith and let you know that those no votes in their own way mean as much as the yes, because it gives us a story. It tells us how our citizens are thinking, and it makes us want to make sure we maintain a balance, that we appreciate the no votes as much as the yes, gives us a real vision and a view of the city. So while we're all very excited that it passed and it will mean improvements for the city, it also means that we have an opportunity to look at everybody that's in our city. So thank you very much. A tremendous turnout, and a lot of people worked really hard for it. And good night.